Welcome back, DIYers. You have a wooden fence that's already showing signs of rot, say, after just 5 years of being put up. Well, I'm building a wooden fence that not only lasts, but will look good for years to come. Now, to do this, I'm DIYing outside the traditional fence building box. So what are the issues that you've got to overcome when you're building a wooden fence so that it'll last for years? Well, come along and I'll show you how I'm going to combat all those issues. So the first thing in building this fence to last has to do with the top and the cross bracings. Well, actually the first thing in building a fence to last is your posts. I already did that video. You'll have to go back and see it. What I did in this corner is I made a double post. So I got two 4x4s here. The reason is I want the top plate coming across this direction and have the whole 4x4 to bolt to or screw to, and then the top plate that goes this direction, instead of having just a 2x4 screwed to here, I wanted a full 4x4 on here to start out with and to screw to. So I had good solid foundation from the start. First obstacle you got to combat when you're building really anything outside is the weather. And the best way you can do that when you're doing wood is to get pressure treated. And what I've got is just that. I've got pressure treated 2x4s that are rated for ground contact, even though they're not touching the ground, go across the top. Now, I'm gonna span two of these spaces for 14 feet. Thing is I can't get 2x4 pressure treated in 14 foot. They come in 16 foot. So I'm gonna have to cut a little bit off. Now, one thing I did not care when I got these is if it had a bow like this, because I can take that out very, very easily. What I didn't want was a crown. And when I got all these boards, they were still pretty green as far as wet with the chemicals, and they had no crown. But since they've kind of dried out, one of them's kind of got a crown and one's got a little twist. I've got them rigged up in this little device where these are 80-pound concrete bags, and these two are right over where the crown is in one of them, and then it's spread out the other direction. The concrete underneath is low, so it will actually bend down a little bit. And then I just have them clamped together really tight to try and get the twist out. But I did grab one that is really straight to start with. So what I've done is marked out for my screw placement. I'm an inch in from the edge of the 4x4 and an inch in from this edge of the 4x4 and 3/4 of an inch in from the sides. I'm gonna pre-drill 4 holes here. Now when I drill these, I'm gonna do my best to drill as straight as possible. So I got my board held in place here with clamps. I got 4 screws pre-drilled. These are 4-inch screws. I want 1.5 inches in plus 2.5 inches into the meat of the 4x4. I've got a little wooden block here to help offset, to know exactly where to put this. This clamp keeps it dead even on each side. I'm going to screw these in. And I'm not going all the way in because I want to still leave some fresh wood to drill into. Now, I got clamps on these two to do the same. Now, I'm going to take my pencil and mark where the 4x4 lands. Now on this post, I know I have to cut, but what I'm gonna do is mark both sides anyway, because that'll tell me how wide my post is, and I'll cut this dead in the center, and then there'll be a screw here and a screw here. On these in between, there'll be 4 screws just like that. So in building this to last, I've noticed sometimes these top boards will actually curve out or curve in, whatever, between the posts. And so to try and stop that so my fence lasts longer, I'm gonna put another 2x4 across here, but I'm gonna put it tall wise. And then I'll screw it into it, which will help hold this together. Staying with the overbuild theme, to last forever, again, pressure treated. Now, when I bought these, again, I looked through every one of them. I didn't care about a bow necessarily like this. Well, I did, as long as it wasn't too much. I really didn't want a crown, but since I got, like I say, when I got these as a fresh bundle, and they were still wet, so some of these kind of have a little bit of a crown. And so what I'll put those towards the top when I bolt and screw everything in, I should say when I screw everything in, it should take all that out. Now, I got a bad spot here, but my 80 inches cuts most of that out. One thing to note too, like this one here has a little bit of a crown in it, but the crown looks to be down at this end, so I'll try and cut that off. Just a little tight on this one. Now I want these to fit snug, but I want them so tight I gotta hammer them in because then it's gonna cause these posts to do this. I'll get a pencil and just scribe that but I bet I need like less than half a blade width on it. Same for this one. It's just perfect. So I got about 3 things to do yet before I can hang these up. So what I want to do is mark the ends and the face of where my screws are going to go. I want the best side forward. So when I put my picket on here, it's flat against here and here, instead of like this one, having this bad edge. And I'm just gonna put pocket holes in the end. I've got this all set up for 1.5 inches. I got my drill bit collar set where I want it. And I've experimented on a block of wood, 4 different holes. And I'm gonna go with 4-inch screws. And the reason is because I don't have 3.5 and I don't wanna take the time to go to Home Depot and get 3.5. So that's what we're gonna do. How I'm gonna set these up is I'm gonna have the edge of the wood, the edge of this block here, and drill this outside hole, move it over, and do the same, and drill this outside hole. And the bottom of this pocket hole is right there at that edge. Drill it according to the gauge. The bottom's clear down here, and if you really got a crank on it, it winds up splitting it out. And I'm putting them on the face like this because if for some strange reason I need to replace this board, I can get to it from my side of the fence. The last prep is putting tar on. I'm using this Henry's asphalt emulsion sealer and damp proofer. It's water-based. I wanted oil-based. They didn't have it. But anyhow, I'm going to put it on the edge that's going to touch this board, the ends, the edge where these boards touch that, and where the 4x4s touch, and also the ends. Then I'll go out and I'll do the tops of the 4x4s. So I just got an old ratty brush here and just smear this stuff on and do the best I can not to get it to run down the front edge. I'm going to get this little back curved edge. It's on the back side. It's going to be up underneath there where water can sit. And the thing I do is I make sure that I'm getting complete coverage, that I'm not having spots where the wood shows through. Why, you ask? Well, all these areas are where moisture can accumulate when it rains and hold and cause rot. Tar it, no rot, it's my thought. And that black stuff you saw between those 2 double posts, tar. Now on boards with kind of defects like this, I make sure I get this stuff all down in there. Now my taped off areas are just outside of where the board's gonna be. So I kind of have some overlap, if you will. Now, if I get a little on this front edge, I don't care. And the reason is because the pickets are going to cover it. Oh, and one other place I'm tarring, right here where the end posts meet the 4x4. And actually, I'm leaving kind of a puddle of this stuff up here on the top to soak in. Okay, I got the board set in place, got my clamps to keep it straight. Put these nails in, we'll go from this end to that end. And like that, this top one's on. Now I need to get the little side braces. Alrighty, I'm gonna set this in first because I can get this end to touch here. That end's got that crown to it, and I'm gonna struggle with it last. The thing I want is to make sure it stays flat here and up here. Now in my haste to hurry up and get this done, I forgot one thing, and that is to drill holes in the top here. So I went through and drilled a 1/8 inch pilot hole using my little drill guide, so I got straight down holes. And so because of this particular board being crowned, I'm gonna start this end and put 3-inch screws in and go that way and help pull this up. This clamp ensures it's touching, so will the screws. I went 2 inches from the end and every foot after that. All right, that's in. The camber or the bow or the crown, whatever you want to call it, has been taken out. My top rail, my first top braces are all in. As you see on the back side, my tar sticks out past. Got a good tar seal up there, a little bit past. Like I say, who cares if it's on this? I'll get the top rails on the rest of this done, and I'll come back and show you how I'm gonna do the next 2 rails. So with all my top braces and rails done, only thing left are the middle one. Typically, when you go buy a section of pre-made fence at the local home center, you'll have a brace at top and brace at bottom. But I'm gonna do 3 braces. The reason is, if you ever watch any of those fences or look at any of those fences over time, the middles are all like this because there's no brace. So that's why I'm putting a middle brace in. And 2, I have dogs like to jump on the fence. So with a middle brace, it'll give it some stability so they don't break it when they jump on it. How am I determining where to put these? Well, some of it is just kind of, that looks good. What I've come up with is I want 9 inches from this concrete pad to the bottom of the 2x4. And so that puts it right there. And then The distance in between there, I'm just splitting. Actually, the distance between here and the top of this board came out to be about 44 inches, so 2 inches for middle, 1.75 inches each direction. So my next one is gonna go here. Now, in order to make this easy and less cumbersome, I'm gonna make a couple jigs, one for each end, to set these boards on. It's gonna make it consistent all the way down so I can get them cut and put in. So let's go to the garage here and make those. So how are we gonna build this? Well, I know at the top of my top board to the top of my middle brace is 25.5 inches. And I know to the bottom of that is 29. And I know from this top rail to the bottom of the bottom brace is 52.5 inches. Now what this jig is gonna look like is it's gonna be a 2x4 that goes like this. I'm gonna have a 2x4 that comes down here. I'll have a 2x4 out this direction. And then I'll have a 2x4 here. And then I'm gonna have an extra one here so that this jig doesn't tilt like that. And I'm gonna have this board extend past the braces about 2 inches so that I've got room and it doesn't fall off. Little bonus tip, always cut the end of your board so that you know you got a nice square flush end to start with. From the measurements I took, from the top of that brace to the bottom of this was 52.5 inches. Now I'll have a 2x4 that sits here, and at the bottom of this, it'll sit here. So because of that, I've got to add 1.5 inches at that end and 1.5 inches at this end so that the bottom of this is at 52.5 inches when that's hooked over the top rail. So let's map this out to make sure we're on course. There's 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches. From the bottom of this to the top of that, 52.5 inches. To make sure I got dead perfect even pair, I'm gonna clamp these two boards together and cut it as one. The board's out here and I got them marked as far as the middle, the bottom, what the face outward, and what way they go as far as top. And then you see I got my little jigs in place. And then all I gotta do is take a regular 2x4, set it on here, draw around it. Now to mark out where it goes, because yes, I'm gonna tar the ends of the posts and the ends of the 2x4s both. This one's the bottom, this one's the middle, the face, and this is the top. So it's designed so I set it in here like this. It sits flat against there, it fits on my deal. Got that extra 1/2 inch, just like I wanted. It sits here, and all I gotta do is mark the back. Same thing down here. How simple can it be? We'll get them cut, come back and test fit them, see if they fit, and if so, we'll get them all attached. Okay, I got these two cut, and just so you know, I got these numbered 1 through 9. So this is the middle of 9. Where's the top edge? Top edge, like a glove. Like a glove. I gotta drill my pocket holes, get my tar, and then sink them home. Got everything tarred, set in there beautifully, using 4-inch exterior screws, and we just drive them home. Make sure it's flush. Take out the jigs, slide them over to the next one. Nice and tight, sturdy, it ain't moving. I just got 8 more of these to do. Then we start putting pickets on. Now that I got all the fence bracing in all the way down, as you can see, it's time to measure off for my pickets. Now, with the HOA, they're kind of strict about being 6 foot only. Well, as you know, with my curb, it's designed to be 2 inches above ground level. So basically, I know I've got to cut 2 inches off. What is this here? This is a spacer stick. It's exactly 1/2 inch. Basically what I did was take a 2x4 and trim off about 3/4 inch, 2 of them, and then use my planer to plane these down to exactly 1/2 inch. So the spacer will sit here, fence pickets will go down on it, and then I'll nail it, and then we'll pull this out, and I'll have a 1/2 inch gap. I'm leaving a 1/2 inch gap so that when it rains, water will drip off the edge here, versus here, the water will stand and soak up through the board. I don't want that, so 1/2 inch is about what I went for because it looked good. Any more than that, it looked too much. That also allows water to run underneath here and everything else. And so naturally you would think, okay, well, take off 2.5 inches. Well, it's gonna wind up being about 2 inches. And the reason is I'm trying to stay in a line with the rest of the pickets here. I don't want to be higher than them, and I don't want to be lower than those. Now, some of these aren't very accurate, but from the ground level to the top of this, about 6 foot 1/2 inch, somewhere in there. Basically, what I've done is put this on here, taken a level off of that board, made sure it was level across here, and then made a mark. And I did the same down at that end. And in order for it to look right, that's about what I need, is 2 inches taken off of each one. So now I gotta go through and cut a bunch of these at 2 inches taken off. Now before we go and cut the fence pickets, let's talk about how straight we are. When it gets at this end, I'm off a little bit, but from here all the way back, I am dead straight. Right here is where it gets off a little bit. And the reason is, as you can see going down this post, it bows out at this area, then it seems to bow in, and it bows back out. Well, what it is, this particular post right here has a bow to it. And so because of that, it's bowing out, and it's causing me to have this kicked out like it is. Now I can tell you, I ran a string line down each side of these posts at the concrete, and they're all in alignment. So it's after it comes out of the concrete that it gets off. So this one bows out, and actually, since I've gotten all these braces in, it's dried out a little bit. It's actually straightened up some, but it bows out, comes back in, goes this direction, and comes back out. So the reason is these two posts right here are that way about inch and a half too far. Like I said, they come out of the concrete dead even all the way down, but these two somehow, when I poured, wind up getting off about like this. And so they're not plumb. And now that it's in the concrete, there's nothing I can do about it. So this post here, even though it looks like, if you look down there, it looks like this one is way too far this direction. Actually, this post here becomes an alignment right in here. So when I put the pickets up, it's gonna look great from here to that direction. When you get down here, it's gonna have a little bow to it. So we'll hope that once it's all done and it's down at this end and you got the other things to look at, you won't notice it. So let's go cut some fence pickets. So I got my saw set up here with a stop where it takes off 2 inches, includes the curve for the blade. I got it to where I can do about 3 boards at a time. I figure I got about 150 of these to do. These boards are actually 6 foot and 3/16, and we're right there, 2 inches short of that. Okay, that's 3 of 150. And yes, you guessed it, I'm tarring the face of this. Reason why? Because when the pickets sit against here, they're going to trap moisture. Well, I'm hoping with it being tarred, they last a whole lot longer. Besides, the way I'm picketing this, you'll never see it. All right, time's finally here to put up some pickets. So, as you can see, I got the facings of the braces and the posts all painted. And yes, I painted the bottoms of the pickets all with the tar. I've got a level. I've got these jigs here for spacing. Get with that in a minute. And then I'm just using a boss stitch framing nailer. This one here's a 21 degree. I've got 2-inch hot dip galvanized ring shank nails in here. Now every one of these boards have got a mark at about 5/16 of an inch in. And that's so that the tip of this nail, that's where it goes. And so that the head doesn't go past 3/4. Now there's a bunch of ways you can put up pickets. But here I'm in an HOA, and for those of you who don't know what an HOA is, it's Homeowners Association. And if you don't know what that is, here in Texas, when they build houses, they build them in subdivisions, and they have a HOA that's kind of a controlling body of the neighborhood. It kind of tells you all kinds of stuff. I mean, they can get so picky as to what colors of paint you can paint your house, and you know, your trash cans can't be out, you can't have cars parked in the street. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff. Mine's not too bad, but the thing is here is it can't be above 6 feet. And I can't stain or paint the pickets, even though the new ones they put out at the front of the subdivision are all painted. But anyhow, so I've got my spacer block down here, and basically the first picket's gonna go up, and I'm gonna have another brace that comes into this and a picket that butts in. So I don't have to be right at the edge of this. I can back off a little bit. So when I do this section of fence, it's gonna come up and butt into it, so it'll hide anything. And in case you're wondering, I got these pickets all turned upside down so the tar doesn't stick to the grass. But back to how to hang these pickets. So in my HOA, I've only got a couple ways I can do it. I can't do horizontal, but the two choices I really have are side by side, or what I'm going to do, and that's going to be an overlapping pattern. My first picket's going to go up here. I'm going to make sure it's plumb before I nail it. Alrighty, it's down at the bottom. It's good and flat against here. Now, I'll get this one nailed up and I'll tell you the specific nailing pattern that I've got going on. Still plumb? Yes. This board is going to get 2 nails at the top into this one. It's going to get 2 nails towards the top of this one and 2 nails towards the top of this one. Because when I come back around and put these up here, they're going to get 2 nails down here, 2 nails down low, and then 2 nails down low here. It's time for these little jigs. So basically I made these, some old siding I had left over. These are 4 1/8 inch wide because I'm going to have 3/4 of an inch overlap. These are 5 5/8 total width, so subtract the 3/4 on each side, it's 4 1/8. And so I've got these set so that when I put them on here, you see they're lining up. Now I got 2 sets because one, this one's going to be going against this tar, and if it gets tar on it, I don't want to come back later and put it on my other pickets and get tar on them. Basically, it's going to go on here. This is going to go just like that. So then I just take my picket, turn it upside down again, make sure it's set on my bottom spacer block. It's lined up, and then I nail. Now, some of these pickets, right now they look really straight, but once I go to put them up here, they might have a little turn on them. So because of that, I'm going to be kind of selective where I put, which nails I put first. I'm doing my best to keep them in a line, but the hope is when this picket goes on here, it's going to cover these nails. So these won't show, but the next pickets will. So that's why I've got these set so when they go in, the head is still under the 3/4 of an inch that I need. In case you're wondering, I went with 2-inch nails so that it didn't come out the back side. And what I'm going to do, after each section, I'll check my plumb, make sure I'm still running good and straight up and down. Okay, it's rinse and repeat all the way down, and then we come back and start over. Take a picture for the wife, let her know the time's finally come. Everybody say cheese. She'll be thrilled that I'm finally getting this done. And just as I started, the last picket is plumb, just like the first picket. Now throughout this first layer of pickets, I did have to adjust 3 or 4 times the pickets just a hair to get back on plumb, but I was never more than maybe an 1/8 inch off, so it was easy to fix. And you can't do it all at once. I'd have to do it over a couple pickets, because if I do it a whole bunch, then my next one won't hit right when I go to nail it. The other thing you'll see me doing is I'll poke my head through and look on the back side. What I'm looking for is any nails that may have gone crooked and popped out the wood. And as you see me doing here, I'm taking a punch, pushing the nail back out, pulling it, and then redirecting it downward so that it goes into the wood and doesn't split out the backside. This last picket ended here, but I got a gap here. And when I get down to the end of the second row, I'll show you how we're going to fix that. Okay, we're ready to put up the second set of pickets. Now, you'll notice this one's got tar on the back side of it, as is this one. My original plan was to tar 3/4 of an inch on each side on the back side so that touched each other, I'd have tar in there and keep it from rotting. But I since stopped for 2 reasons. One, it was taking forever. I mean, these 8 boards took over 30 minutes. And 2, when I go to put these boards up here, if I miss or hit, I'm liable to scrape that tar on there and get tar on my good boards, and I definitely don't want that. So for this first one, I got my 3/4 measuring block, and basically I'm just going to draw a line of these 2 pickets where the cross braces are, because that's where I'm going to be nailing. I got the faces of these marked so I know where to place my nails, because I got to get this perfect, because everything after this is set off of it. And again, nail pattern. So all these were nailed at the tops of the braces. These will get nailed towards the bottom of the braces. Now that is down tight. Now we'll take one of these tarred ones. And again, I've got my little jig. It sits on the face of the picket, rests against the first one that I put on. And just like that, we'll go on down. And when I'm all done, I'll go on the back side of the fence and look for any stray nails that might need to be fixed. And the nails I'm using are hot dip galvanized, just like these others were. They're ring shank, just like these others are, but they're 2 3/8 inches long and they're number 8s, so that'll go through 2 pickets and into the wood. And ring shank, in case you didn't know, they are a bear to get out, whereas your smooth shanked, they come out, they work their way out as you get expansion and contraction of the boards over time. These shouldn't. So we're down to just the last little bit here. I got a gap here and I don't like it. Now, when I do this section of fence, this board's gonna come in right in here. So I don't want that gap. So I'm gonna cut something to fit in there. What I'll need to do is take measurements here for a filler block and then take a measurement for this one to go. I've got a 3/4 mark here and down there. The spacer piece is here. I tarred the inside of this board and the spacer piece. I tacked it on there with some 1-inch aluminum 2D nails, and I tarred this side. That way when it sits on here, it's sitting tar on tar and won't rot. When this side's done, this board will start in here, cover anything here, and make it look seamless. And with that, this section of the fence project is finally done. Now it's basically a rinse and repeat for the rest of it. And when I stand back and look at it, I couldn't be more pleased with how it came out. I mean, if you didn't know all the little nuances and mistakes that I'm about to tell you, and you came in to see this, you'd swear I paid somebody to professionally come in and do this. And that's exactly what I was after. Now the final little detail I had to do with this curb. Now I took the leftover dirt that I had, and I used dirt loosely, it's mainly clay based, and filled each side of this curb, my side and my neighbor's side, and got it filled kind of to where I want it. But the final little detail is I took and got some topsoil in bags from my local Home Depot. And what I did was I got it so that it slopes down towards that direction like it's supposed to, and that it slopes away from the curb or the fence, so that when it rains, water will run down and channel out here and not along the curb itself. And it also got the dirt up to ground level and got me some nice good topsoil for my grass to grow in. Now the lucky thing for me, where I'm at here in Texas, I have St. Augustine grass. If you don't know anything about that stuff, it self-seeds itself, if you want to call it that. It basically sends off shoots in all directions. And by the 1st of May, this will all be populated with nice green grass, and it'll look like it's always been here and that nothing was ever done. The other thing I did was I got these sprinklers put back in place and got them all situated like they needed to be. And in case you're wondering, when I take a measurement from this ground level that I've now established to the top of the fence, in some areas, well actually at that end down there, I'm exactly at 6 foot. As it comes up through here, the highest I get is 6 foot, 1/2 inch. Couldn't be more happy with that and how that turned out. As you'll see here as I'm scanning the fence, the very tops of them all look nice and level and even. And I'm really happy with now that the picket's up and I scanned down this side. If you remember how the one board came out and then it curved back in and then back out like that, it's almost invisible. In fact, I don't think, unless I sat here and pointed it out to you like I'm doing, that you'd even notice that I had that bad spot. Looking down there, I'm very thrilled with how that looks because it looks pretty natural. And scanning from that end to this direction, it's dead straight. It looks beautiful. The other thing I'm happy with, as I'm showing you here, is my nail pattern on the face boards is pretty even and consistent all the way across the tops, along the middles also, and pretty much along the bottoms, and I'm really happy with that. Now I originally thought about snapping a chalk line on here to do my nail placements, but I was worried that if I did that, I wouldn't get that chalk off of this fence, and I don't want that chalk line. So by just eyeballing down through here, it looks pretty good. And as far as hiding the nails underneath, by the way I designed this, it did a fairly good job. Yeah, it could have been better, but you know, it did pretty good. I'd still have some nails, like one here. I got another one here that shows. I mean, if you look really hard and start looking for them, you'll see that the nails are showing through. But when you stand back and look at it, really all you see is these face nails. And the view from the backside looks pretty nice. As you can see as I'm scanning through here, you can see I've backfilled on my neighbor's side against the curb with that topsoil, I should say, again, clay. And up here where I originally started with the tarred boards, doesn't look bad, but I'm happy I didn't do the rest because the rest of the fence looks really nice. And the really nice thing about this is now a true privacy fence. And now that this section of the fence project is all done, I really want to know, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Do you like it? Is there something else you'd have done different? Is this something you would try to do? And if you've done this, let me know how it turned out. Did you have the same issues I did? Because I'd really like to know, because personally, I think this is absolutely beautiful. Now, I do have one final thing to do, but it's not going to be part of this video, and that is to seal this fence. But that'll be another video. And during this video, you may have noticed me wearing different DIY apparel. If you want to know where you can get some of it, I got a link down below. You can go check out my Etsy store. I've got all kinds of designs there. And if you haven't seen this whole series, you want to know how I did the curb, I have a link to that video up here. If you want to know how I did the posts and poured all that, I'll have a link down here for that so you can go watch. One final thing, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification. And until our next project, happy DIYing.